This is a tutorial on the thermal stitch. Start with some yarn. It doesn't matter what weight. I'm starting with double knit and a hook appropriate to the weight of yarn, with the idea being you go down in size to ensure the fabric isn't too loose or have too many gaps. Because I crochet with a tight tension, I'm only going down to a size 5 hook. Typically with a double knit yarn, the recommended size is a 6. But you can go down further if you have a looser tension, just to get the right denseness of fabric. You might have to play with it a little bit. This might also be a bit of a tutorial in the chainless foundation single crochet. If you use a chain, make sure you chain very loosely. Otherwise, you're going to find that the chain won't allow the fabric to stretch very much. So do a slip knot, whichever way you prefer. Chain 2. And then I go back into the little bump on the back of the chain here. I don't know if you can see that very well, but typically you have the V on top of the chain, and then there's a little bump on the back. Go into that, pull up a loop. I'm sorry, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then basically the chainless foundation, you're creating the chain as you go. So once you've pulled up a loop, then you yarn over and you chain 1. So you pull through that first loop on your chain, on your hook, then yarn over and pull through 2 as if you're doing that single crochet. Then when you turn it over, you'll be able to see that chain that you just created. So you'll go back into that, and sometimes it'll be a little bit fiddly in the beginning. So you just got to kind of work your hook through there as best you can. And again, this is because I crochet a little tight. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and then again yarn over, basically chain 1 by pulling through that first loop, then yarn over and make your single crochet. And then it gets a little bit easier. You can see that chain space a little bit better. So go in through there, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and basically this is your chain 1, pull through that first loop, then yarn over, make your single crochet. I'll do that one more time and then skip the video. Go in through that chain you just made, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through that first loop to make a chain, yarn over, and then make your single crochet by pulling through. Oh, and these terms are US terms. Okay, now make your foundation as wide as you want your project to be, whether that be a scarf or a blanket, whatever you'd like, and then come back. Okay, now we're back. You should have your size, whatever you decide you need for your project. I only did a sample size of 15 stitches, and you can see with the chainless foundation, you still have that chain, and it's pretty neat and tidy. You have actual stitches that you can work into if you're going to be making a border or adding tassels or anything. It makes it pretty easy to do that. So from here, you're going to turn your work, but instead of turning it this way, we're actually going to be working kind of vertically. It's going to make it easier to find these stitches that we're looking for. So this is the stitch that we just ended in. Now my personal preference is to make a regular single crochet through the top of that first stitch, just to make the edges tidy. You can choose to just go directly in with your thermal stitch, but I like to make a single crochet on the edges. So that takes us to this next stitch. You can see the V there. So we're going to be working into the back loop. Now it seems odd because the work that's facing you would be a front loop. But if you remember, we would be working this way. So that's why it's this back loop that you work into. And then you're basically, there's this other stitch here, not stitch, this other loop that gets created when you make the single crochet that you're going to be working into. It's only weird this first row because there isn't a bottom row. You're basically going 2 rows below, but because it's the first row, it's not really 2 rows before, if that makes sense. So again, you go into this back loop, and then you'll see there's a little bar here, and you go into that as well. I'm trying to use my nail to kind of separate that so you can see. Yarn over and pull through both of those loops, yarn over and make your single crochet. So I'll show that again. So here's the top of your work. You can see that loop is pulled, so you know that's the stitch you just worked into. You go to this next stitch where you can see this V. You work into just that back loop, and then you look for that bar below it, yarn over, pull up a loop between both those loops, yarn over, and make your single crochet. Keep going, back loop, that little bar, oops, yarn over, pull up a loop through those 2 loops, yarn over, make your single crochet. Now meet back when you've done that all the way across. Okay, I'm coming to the end of my work, so I wanted to show you the last 2 stitches. So the second to last stitch is going to be the same. Insert into that back loop of that stitch, look for that bar below, insert through there, yarn over, pull through both of those loops, yarn over, make your single crochet. Okay, so this is the last stitch on this chain. I'm sorry, it's not a chain, but it's the foundation, so it doesn't count as a row. That's your foundation. So this is our first row. So again, on the ends, I'm making just a single crochet. So you insert through the top of that stitch as a normal stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and make your single crochet. Now what you're left with is a bit of a bump, and that's normal. That's what you want. So that's what it looks like. If it will come into focus. You can see that there's the row of stitches on the top, and then there's this ridge that pops up. Okay, so for basically the second row, you're going to, again, normally you would turn your work like this, but instead you're going to turn it this way. And again, I'm going to work a regular stitch into that first stitch, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, make your single crochet on the end. And then you can see this is the next stitch here. So you're going to go into that back loop. And again, it is the back loop. If you were working normally, you'd be going this way. So it would be that back loop. And then you're going to, now it's much easier to see, you're going into that back loop 2 rows below. So there. So you yarn over, pull up a loop through both of those loops, yarn over, make your single crochet. So it gets a lot easier from this point. You go in that back loop 2 rows below, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, make your single crochet. One more time. Back loop of the stitch you're working into, back loop of that stitch below, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, make your single crochet. Now do that all the way across. Okay, once again, I'm coming to the end of my row. Wanted to show you the last 2 stitches. You can see there's 2 V's here. So for that second to last back loop, bar below, which is that stitch from 2 rows below, pull up a loop, yarn over, make your single crochet, and then for that last stitch I'm doing a single crochet into the top of that stitch. So you can see if you don't do anything to it, it's kind of misshaped, but it should snap into shape very well. If it doesn't, if it's like this, it could be, if you used a chain foundation, it could be that your chain is too tight and you may want to start over. If you are able to just kind of stretch it into shape, you're probably fine, and I wouldn't worry about it. It is a very stretchy stitch. We don't have enough to pull it this way, but it does stretch that way as well. So I'm going to do a few rows and come back to show you what that looks like. You would just do as many rows as you want the project to be. Now, for counting these rows, it's a little more complicated because of the stitch. I'll show you that after we have some rows to count. I wanted to show you how much easier it is to see what you're working into on that next row. So this is the top of the, if you were turning your work, this is the top. And then if you turn it to the side, you can see how easy it is to see that back loop only of the row of the stitch below and back loop only of the stitch 2 rows below. As you work, it gets a lot easier to see. That first row when you're working into the chainless foundation is a little tricky, but as you work, it makes it easier to see your next project, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So I finished my sample size. I only did 15 rows, but you can see you can stretch it both ways, but it still holds its shape. And I wanted to show you how to count the rows. Basically, you have to count them from both sides. So this is that foundation that we made, the chainless foundation. And then you can see each row has a stitch with the bar. So basically, I count the bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on this side. Then you turn it over and count the bars on this side. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I started with a foundation of 15 stitches. I kept that number of stitches all the way through. So I have 15 rows and 15 stitches across. And you can see there's no gaps to speak of. And it stretches in both ways. Obviously it stretches this way more, but it makes for a very thick, cozy fabric. This wouldn't be something for summer. But you can see the top has that slant, right? Because it's only worked on one side of the stitch. I wanted to show you what to do if you wanted to try and even that out. So your finishing row, if you wanted to, because obviously you could just leave it like that. It's not that noticeable. It's not really a big deal. But you could opt to put a stitch in that first stitch as normal. Make your single crochet, and then you, to finish it off, you put your hook through the top of the next stitch as a normal stitch, as well as that bar. Pull up a loop through all of those, so it'd be through those 3 loops, and make your single crochet. I'll show that again. So this is the next stitch. You can see the V. You put it through the top of that V like a normal stitch, but you also pick up that bar from that stitch 2 rows below. Pull up a loop, make your single crochet. Again, so you can work the same way we've been doing it in that vertical, but look for that next stitch, the V, put it through both, pick up that bar, yarn over, pull up a loop, make your single crochet. One more time, through the top of that stitch, pick up that other stitch, pull up a loop through all of the loops, make your single crochet. Top of the stitch, pick up that loop, pull all through all 3 loops, single crochet. I'm going to do that all the way around and I'll meet you back. I'm coming to the end of my work here, so I wanted to show you again. This is that next stitch. That's the top of the stitch. Sorry, I'm trying to make that easier to see there. That's the top of the stitch. Through that top of the stitch, pick up that back loop from 2 rows below, pull through all of those loops, complete your single crochet as necessary. Through the top of that next stitch, pick up that back loop only from below, pull up a loop, finish your single crochet as necessary, and then this is that last single crochet. There you go, single crochet, and then you can see the top is finished and it kind of matches the bottom. Obviously it looks a little different from the rest of the work, but you can see there's not a ridge exactly. Now, because we did regular single crochets on the end, there is a bit of a bow. You can see that kind of U shape, but that will stretch out. You can block it to if it's really noticeable or bothersome, but that's the thermal stitch, and this can be worked in the round. That's how you get the beanie. I don't have that to hand, but I did want to bring this. This is obviously a more completed piece, and you can see that single crochet on the end starts to make less of a difference as you get to the top. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions.